Have you ever looked at a billionaire and wondered, what do they know that I don't? It's not luck, it's not just timing, it's how they think and how they see the world differently from everyone else. Today, we're pulling back the curtain, not on their money but on their mindset. Because once you start thinking like them, everything changes. So here's the 20 mental models that billionaires think of business and life. 1. The only real way to start a business. Everyone wants to start a business. At parties, meetings, and lunches, someone always comes up with a great idea, a revolutionary solution, an incredible app, a product that will change the world. But after so many years of working with entrepreneurs, from beginners to billionaires, one thing is clear: ideas are worthless if they're not put into practice. The naked truth is that the only real way to start a business is by selling something, not by putting together a business plan. It's not hiring a designer to create a logo. It's not making a pretty pitch to investors. It's simple. Offer something real to someone who can pay for it. In the beginning, your job is to prove just one thing: that there is someone willing to open their wallet for what you have. And that doesn't take perfection, it takes courage. When David Gandler started Fubo TV, he didn't hire a market research team. He went out on the street with a t-shirt and started selling the idea. When I started my first technology business, I didn't spend months planning. I called a potential client and sold the product before it even existed. And you know why? Because nothing validates a deal more than a customer saying yes with money. It's easy to fool yourself into thinking that you need to be ready, but businesses are not born ready. They are born from direct contact with the market. And in this process, you learn more in a week of selling than in a year of planning. A real customer will show you, unfiltered, whether what you offer has value. If you're looking for a business that will make you a lot of money, with little effort and free time from the start, my advice is clear. Don't go into business, because even the easiest ones will consume your time, energy, and patience. In the beginning, every business will suck you in, and only after a lot of effort, sweat, and trying does it start to give you something back. So if you really want to be an entrepreneur, stop waiting for the ideal moment. Choose a problem you understand, create a simple solution, and offer it to someone. Pick up the phone, go out into the street, make an appointment, test it out, listen, learn, sell. Because in the real world, businesses don't start with brilliant ideas. They start with real sales. And if you're still waiting for the perfect moment to act, maybe what you're missing isn't a better plan. Maybe what you're missing is just courage. 2. The trap of easy businesses. Everyone dreams of the perfect business. The kind that makes money while you sleep, requires little effort, and gives you total freedom from day one. People often approach successful entrepreneurs with the same question: what kind of business can I start that will make a lot of money, but won't take much time or energy? And the answer, though rarely what they want to hear, is the most honest one. Don't start a business, because if easy is your main filter, you're walking straight into a trap. The idea of a business that's simple, passive, and instantly profitable is a fantasy, one that's sold by YouTube ads, dropshipping gurus, and fake online mentors. In the real world, every business is hard in the beginning, even the ones that look easy from the outside. When you're just starting, nothing runs on autopilot. The product needs fixing, customers have complaints, systems don't exist, you don't have a team, a process, or a reputation. Every decision runs through you. Every mistake costs you money, and the few sales you make feel more like miracles than a model. What most people call an easy business is usually only easy after years of building infrastructure, failing repeatedly, and developing intuition through pain. They're seeing the tip of the iceberg, a well-oiled machine that took thousands of hours to create. What they don't see is the late nights, the anxiety, the lost money, and the thousands of micro decisions it took to get there. Here's the truth no one talks about. Even the simple businesses will drain your energy, your time, and your cash at the beginning. Think about opening a small coffee shop. Sounds simple, right? But you'll deal with suppliers, permits, rent, inventory, hiring, marketing, customer complaints, and endless unpredictability. Or launching a digital product. Sure, no physical overhead. But now you're dealing with tech bugs, customer support, refund requests, content creation, and building trust in a crowded market. The point isn't to scare you away. It's to set you free from false expectations, because the moment you stop chasing easy is the moment you start making real progress. When you accept that business is hard, but worthwhile, you stop looking for the perfect idea and start developing the perfect mindset. One that values grit over glamour, persistence over perfection, and momentum over magic. It's okay to want freedom. But understand this, freedom is not the starting point, it's the reward. And the people who get there didn't look for the easiest path. They chose something hard, committed to it fully, and stuck with it long enough to become unstoppable. So if you're still waiting to find a business that makes money fast, takes no effort, and gives you total time freedom, stop waiting. It doesn't exist. But if you're ready to suffer a little, work a lot, and earn your freedom, then you're already ahead of 95% of people. That's the real entry point. That's where it starts, not with ease, but with commitment. 3. The myth of work-life balance. There's a lie that gets repeated over and over in the world of entrepreneurship. You hear it in interviews, podcasts, and social media posts from smiling founders sipping coffee in beachside cafes. Build a business that gives you balance. Or worse, find your passion, and you'll never work a day in your life. Let's cut through the noise. There is no such thing as work-life balance when you're building something from the ground up. Not in the beginning, not when it matters most. When you're launching a business, you're not building a machine. You are the machine. You're the founder, the strategist, the customer service rep, the marketer, the janitor, and the accountant. Your startup doesn't care if your kid has a soccer game. It doesn't care if it's your anniversary, if you're tired, or if you're burned out. The business has needs, and if you don't feed it, it dies. It's not personal, it's just reality. People see successful entrepreneurs going to their kids' events, taking vacations, and living with apparent freedom, and they assume that's what entrepreneurship looks like. But what they're seeing is the result of years of imbalance, of sacrifice, long nights, and missed moments. Freedom is not the default, it's the reward. You don't build something meaningful with your foot halfway in. Businesses are living, breathing entities. In the beginning, they're fragile, demanding, and completely dependent on you. If you try to split your attention evenly between your comfort and your creation, one of them will suffer. And if it's the business, it might not survive. That's not to say your family, health, or relationships don't matter. They do. But in the early days, you need to be brutally honest. Something will have to give. You're not building a side hustle. You're building a foundation, and foundations are poured in sweat, time, and undivided focus. Does that mean burnout is a badge of honor? No. But obsession is. You have to want it enough to rearrange your priorities, at least for a while. You have to be okay with missing events, staying up late and waking up early. You have to accept that while others are living for the weekend, you might be building through it. Not forever, but for long enough to create something real. Eventually, balance becomes possible. Systems replace your hands, teams replace your time, revenue replaces your grind. But that comes after you've earned it, not before. The myth of work-life balance in the early stages is dangerous because it creates false expectations. It makes people feel like they're failing when they're actually doing exactly what's required. If you're just getting started, don't chase balance, chase progress, chase clarity, chase momentum. Be willing to be temporarily unbalanced in pursuit of long-term freedom. Because here's the hard truth: you can have anything you want, but not all at once. Balance will come, but only if you earn it first through focused, relentless, and sometimes messy work. That's the trade, that's the deal. And if you're not ready for that, you're not ready to build something that lasts. 4. The fatal mistake that kills new businesses. Most businesses don't fail because of competition, lack of funding, or even bad timing. They fail because the founder builds something no one actually wants. Not because they're lazy, not because they didn't work hard enough, but because they made one critical mistake. They fell in love with their idea instead of the customer's problem. It's easy to see the world through your own lens. You have an idea. You believe in it. You imagine how much people will love it. You spend weeks, months, sometimes even years building it, obsessing over details that no one asked for. And then, nothing. No sales, no engagement, no interest. Why? Because you never took the time to ask the most important question in business. What does the customer actually value? This is the most common fatal flaw among new entrepreneurs. They define value from their own perspective instead of stepping into the shoes of the person they're trying to serve. They get attached to features, logos, and designs, but forget that no one cares about any of that unless it solves a real problem in a meaningful way. There's a reason the classic challenge, "Sell me this pen," is so famous. The correct answer isn't to hype up the pen, it's to first ask, who am I selling it to? You don't sell the pen until you understand the buyer. The mistake is assuming the value is in the object, when the truth is, value only exists in the eyes of the customer. Steve Jobs once said, "People don't know what they want until you show it to them." And while there's truth in that, it doesn't mean you should create in a vacuum. It means you have to understand the deeper need that people may not even be able to articulate yet. Your job isn't just to build, it's to empathize, observe, ask, and test. Real businesses don't start with a pitch. They start with a problem. Not a problem you think exists, but one that people are actively trying to solve and willing to pay to fix. Here's the simplest way to test if your idea has real value. Can you describe the problem better than your customer can? If you can do that, they'll trust that you know how to solve it. Founders who skip this step are building castles in the clouds. They're creating solutions in search of problems. And they often burn through their savings, their energy, and their confidence before realizing they never had product-market fit in the first place. But founders who stay obsessed with the customer, who listen, test, iterate, and stay flexible, they build things people can't live without. They don't just sell products, they create transformations. So before you launch your next big idea, stop and ask, who is this for? What pain does it solve? Why would someone choose this over doing nothing? Am I building this because it excites me or because it serves them? Your ego wants to be right, but your business only survives if you're useful. And in the end, the entrepreneurs who win aren't the ones with the most original ideas. They're the ones who create the most value in someone else's life, consistently, repeatedly, and without guessing. That's the difference between a dreamer and a builder. 5. How to identify an irresistible product. In business, there's a dangerous assumption that leads many entrepreneurs down the wrong path. The belief that early sales mean long-term success. That if a few people buy your product, it must be great. But here's the truth. Sales alone are not the best indicator of product-market fit. Obsession is. The real question isn't, are people buying? It's, do they come back? Do they tell their friends? Do they say, I can't live without this? That's the difference between a product that sells and a product that spreads, a product that merely survives, and one that becomes undeniable. A truly irresistible product creates what can only be described as a fanatical response. People don't just like it, they love it, they use it obsessively, they incorporate it into their routines. They would be genuinely upset if it disappeared tomorrow. That's your signal. Because here's the secret. Average products need great marketing, but great products market themselves. Think about the products or services you use every day without even thinking. Your phone, your favorite app, your go-to snack, your trusted software. You don't need to be reminded to use them. You don't need to be convinced. They solve a problem so seamlessly or deliver so much value that they become part of your life. That's what you're aiming for. The early stage of any business is filled with noise, testing, learning, adjusting, but if you're paying attention, you'll see moments of clarity, customer reactions that stand out. That person who emails you just to say, thank you. The review that says, this changed everything for me. The customer who buys and then comes back to buy more, but not once, but again and again. These aren't just compliments, they're data. When you build something people love, they won't be quiet about it. They'll talk, they'll share, and they'll advocate. You won't need to force testimonials. They'll give them freely because your product delivered more than they expected. And in a world full of empty promises, that's rare. Here's the test. If your product disappeared tomorrow, would anyone notice? Would anyone care? Or worse, would anyone be relieved? A good product creates a transaction. An irresistible one creates a relationship. And relationships are sticky. They survive competition. They justify premium pricing. They create loyal communities that defend you even when you mess up, because you've earned trust, not just attention. To build something like that, you have to go deeper than surface-level feedback. Look for emotion in the response. Look for words like need, addicted, life-changing, or can't imagine going back. That's where the signal is. That's what validates your direction. If you don't see that signal yet, don't panic. It just means you need to iterate. You need to go back to the root of the problem and refine your solution until it lands, until it hits something primal, urgent, undeniable. Not just for a customer, but for your customer. Forget vanity metrics. Forget early hype. Focus on resonance, because in the long run, hype fades, but obsession compounds. 6. Failure. When it's useful and when it destroys. In the startup world, we love to glorify failure. Fail fast. Fail forward. Failure is a stepping stone to success. And while there's some truth in that, most people misunderstand what failure actually means. And more importantly, what kind of failure is worth embracing. The truth is, not all failure makes you stronger. Some failure just breaks you. There's a difference between learning through small, controlled experiments and crashing so hard that you lose your money, your momentum, your confidence, and sometimes your belief in yourself. Productive failure is feedback. It's a signal that something didn't work and a chance to adjust quickly. It might be a marketing message that didn't land, a feature no one used, a strategy that missed the mark. These are the pivots, the micro-corrections that build real experience. They sting, but they don't leave you paralyzed. You keep going, a little smarter each time. Destructive failure, on the other hand, usually comes from pride, denial, or delusion. It's the founder who keeps pouring money into a bad idea because they're emotionally attached. It's ignoring what the market is clearly saying because you believe in your vision. It's growing too fast without infrastructure or raising money without a business model. These failures are often celebrated in hindsight, but in reality, they can destroy careers, relationships, and mental health. One of the most dangerous ideas out there is that failure is good. That mindset gives people permission to be reckless, But real entrepreneurs don't seek failure, they seek clarity. They accept failure only as a temporary side effect of experimentation, not as a badge of honor. Investors know this. That's why many of them, including myself, don't rush to back founders who've had a complete collapse. A small exit is fine, a tough learning moment is fine, but someone who burned everything down and calls it a lesson, that's a red flag, because failure at that scale often signals something deeper: poor judgment, lack of self-awareness, or an inability to adapt. You want to be the kind of founder who fails small, fast, and often not big, late, and irreversible. Great entrepreneurs don't avoid failure, but they manage the downside relentlessly. They ask, what's the worst-case scenario, and make sure it won't wipe them out. They don't bet the whole company on a hunch. They test in micro. They protect the core. Failure is most useful when it teaches you something about the customer, the market, or yourself, and you act on it immediately. It becomes toxic when it becomes a pattern, a habit, or worse, an identity. So here's the difference. Useful failure humbles you and sharpens your instincts. Destructive failure blinds you and breaks your momentum. Don't fear failure, but don't romanticize it either. What matters isn't whether you fail, it's how you fail, how quickly you recognize it, and what you do next. The best founders fall down 100 times, but never in the same way twice. In this game, you're not rewarded for how many times you crash. You're rewarded for how quickly you course correct and how wisely you rebuild. 7. If I started from scratch. What I would do differently. People love to ask successful entrepreneurs one particular question. If you had to start all over again, what would you do differently? It's a good question, terse, and an uncomfortable one, because the truth is, most of us don't like to admit we got in our own way. For a long time, I didn't have a clear answer. I used to say things like, I wouldn't change anything. Every mistake made me who I am. And that's partly true, but with time and brutal honesty, I realized there is one thing I would absolutely change, one thing that held me back far more than any external obstacle. I would dream bigger, not louder, not faster, bigger. Looking back, the greatest limitation in my journey wasn't access, money, timing, or talent. It was my own imagination. I didn't think big enough. I couldn't picture a future beyond a certain size. My goals were ambitious by most standards, but they were still too small for what was truly possible. And that's the trap. When you've never seen a billion-dollar business up close, it's hard to imagine building one. When no one in your circle has gone global, it's easy to believe that your local success is the ceiling. But the ceiling is almost always imaginary. It's made of fear, doubt, and the limits of your current perspective. The biggest shift happens when your mind expands to a new level of possibility and refuses to shrink back. Because the truth is, you can only build as big as you believe. Everything starts in the mind. If your vision is narrow, your actions will follow. You'll make safe decisions, hire cautiously, invest timidly, and take fewer risks, not because of reality, but because of internal constraints. When I finally met people playing a bigger game, entrepreneurs building across continents, impacting millions, managing empires, I realized I'd been dreaming too small. Not because I lacked ambition, but because I lacked exposure. Once I saw what was possible, I couldn't unsee it, I couldn't go back. So if I were starting from scratch today, I wouldn't just think about building a successful company. I'd ask bigger questions. What problem can I solve that's big enough to matter to millions? How can I design something that scales globally from day one? Am I building something that's just profitable or something that's transformational? And yes, I'd still work like hell. Dreaming bigger doesn't mean working less. It means your energy has direction. It means you're not climbing the wrong mountain faster. There's a quote that says, Most people fail not because they aim too high and miss, but because they aim too low and hit. That was me. And it's most people, especially those with talent, drive, and integrity, but limited vision. If you want to build something truly extraordinary, start by upgrading your internal blueprint. Ask yourself, what would I build if I couldn't fail? Who would I become if I didn't limit myself to what's reasonable, realistic, or safe? Because here's the truth no one tells you. The size of your success will rarely exceed the size of your vision. So if I could go back and do it all again, I'd still make mistakes, I'd still pivot, I'd still work long hours and question myself at times. But one thing I wouldn't do, I wouldn't think so small. 8. The success myth. Why money doesn't make you happy. There's a dangerous illusion that chases every aspiring entrepreneur, every ambitious professional, and every high achiever chasing the next milestone. It goes like this. Once I'm successful, I'll be happy. It sounds harmless, motivational even, but it's a lie, and one that can quietly destroy you from the inside out. People think success is a finish line. A magical place where stress disappears, relationships improve, insecurities dissolve, and peace arrives like a reward. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Success doesn't fix you, it exposes you. I've met countless people who reached their goals, built companies, earned millions, got the house, the car, the applause, and still felt empty. Why? Because success doesn't change your inner world. It just amplifies what's already there. If you're anxious, money won't make you calm. If you're insecure, power won't make you confident. If you're bitter, recognition won't make you grateful. If you're unhappy without success, you'll still be unhappy with it. Only now, it's harder to admit. Success can even make things worse, because once you have what you thought would fulfill you and you still feel unsatisfied, you're forced to confront a brutal realization. Maybe the problem wasn't outside of you, maybe it was inside all along. That's why so many successful people quietly fall apart. They reach the top, only to realize they climbed the wrong mountain, or worse, that the top is just another lonely ledge with a better view. None of this means that success is meaningless. Wealth, freedom, and achievement can absolutely enrich your life, but only if you're already grounded. Only if your identity, self-worth, and happiness aren't chained to your results. The irony is that the happiest people I know didn't wait to succeed to feel good. They found joy in the process, in the struggle, the learning, the growth. They built their happiness on who they were becoming, not what they were accumulating. And that's the real shift, understanding that happiness isn't something you achieve, it's something you cultivate. It's not the prize at the end, it's the fuel that gets you through the middle. If you believe that money, fame, or success will finally give you peace, you'll always be a hostage to the next milestone. You'll delay your happiness, trade presents for productivity, and sacrifice your mental health on the altar of one day. But if you learn to build joy where you are, to find meaning in the mess, to celebrate progress, to treat each failure as a teacher, then success becomes a byproduct, not the goal. A reflection of who you are, not the reason you matter. Because in the end, real success isn't about more followers, more revenue, or more trophies. It's about this. Can you wake up each day, look in the mirror, and honestly say, I like who I am? If the answer is yes, you're already ahead. If the answer is no, no amount of money will fix that. 9. The simplest habit that unlocked my productivity. For years, I believed I was productive because I was always busy. My calendar was full, my inbox never stopped, my to-do list was endless. And yet deep down, I always had the nagging feeling that I wasn't really moving forward, just spinning in place. Then, someone gave me a piece of advice so simple I almost ignored it. They said, every morning before you check your email, before you open your phone, before you get swept up in the noise, write down 3 things you absolutely must complete today. Not 10, not 5, just 3. And don't go to sleep until they're done. It sounded too basic to work. But I was desperate to feel real momentum again, so I tried it. 1 sheet of paper, 3 tasks, no excuses. What happened next changed everything. I realized that most of my productivity issues weren't about time management. They were about focus. I was spending my days reacting to messages, to meetings, to other people's agendas. I was constantly working, but rarely on the things that actually moved the needle. The rule of 3 forced clarity. It made me choose what really mattered. Not the easy wins, not the things that made me feel busy, but the actions that, if completed, would make the day feel meaningful, even if I got nothing else done. Sometimes it was strategic. Finish the pitch deck, close the sale, hire the right person. Other times it was personal. Call my father, write for an hour, go to the gym. But no matter what, those 3 things became non-negotiable. It didn't take long to feel the shift. My mind got sharper. My stress dropped. I ended more days with a quiet sense of pride, not burnout. And most surprisingly, I got way more done, even though I was technically doing less. Because here's the secret no one tells you. Productivity isn't about doing everything. It's about doing what matters most, consistently. When you start your day without intention, you default to urgency. You chase what's loudest instead of what's most important. But when you start with clarity, the chaos doesn't control you. You control the chaos. The habit is simple, and that's why it works. There's no fancy system, no expensive planner, no productivity app. Just a question. What 3 things will make today a win? Write them down. Keep the list visible, and don't negotiate with it. Not every day will be perfect. Life will interrupt. Plans will fall apart. But the days you finish your 3 things, those are the days that stack into real progress. I've used this habit to launch companies, write books, scale teams, and navigate some of the hardest seasons of my life. It's not magic, it's not trendy, it's just discipline aimed in the right direction. So if you ever feel stuck, overwhelmed, or scattered, try this. Forget the giant to-do list, ignore the pressure to do it all, and just ask yourself, what are my 10 red flags that instantly turn off investors? After decades of hearing pitches, backing companies, and watching founders rise and fall, I can tell you this. Investors don't just invest in products, they invest in people. And more importantly, they learn to spot the warning signs, the subtle cues that say, this founder isn't ready. You might have a great idea. You might even have traction. But if you trigger certain red flags, no investor, no matter how generous or visionary, will put their money behind you. So what are these red flags? Let's break down the ones that matter most. 1. You've failed and learned nothing. Contrary to popular belief, failure doesn't automatically make you wise. Investors aren't inspired by someone who ran a business into the ground and calls it a lesson. What we look for is what you did next. Did you pivot? Did you reflect? Did you show humility? Or did you burn the bridge, blame others, and repeat the same mistakes? It's okay to have stumbled. What matters is whether that stumble sharpened your vision or shattered your self-awareness. 2. You don't know your numbers. This one is fatal. If you can't tell me your CAC, your LTV, your burn rate, or even your break-even point, I'm out. Not because I don't believe in your product, but because you clearly don't understand how it lives and breathes. Every business has a heartbeat, a few key metrics that tell the story. If I wake you up at 2 a.m. and ask, you should know them cold. That shows discipline, competence, and obsession. If you hesitate or deflect, you're not ready to lead an investment. 3. Your mindset is shaky. Show me a struggling startup, and I'll show you a founder who's emotionally unstable. That might sound harsh, but it's true. If the entrepreneur is chaotic, insecure, or mentally exhausted, it bleeds into every part of the company. Culture, communication, cash flow. Founders don't need to be perfect, but they do need to be grounded, resilient, clear-headed. If you're chasing validation, afraid of hard conversations, or paralyzed by fear, investors can feel it, and they'll quietly walk away. 4. You're trying to impress instead of communicate. A polished pitch deck means nothing if you can't clearly explain what you do, who it helps, and how it works. If I don't understand your value proposition in the first 2 minutes, I'm not going to sit around for the next 20. Great founders don't try to sound smart, they try to make things simple, because when you really understand your business, you don't need fluff, you don't need jargon, you don't need to hide behind marketing speak, you just tell the truth, and it lands. 5. You're playing short-term games. If your pitch is all about a quick flip, a viral moment, or an exit strategy before you've even built anything meaningful, it's a red flag. Serious investors want to back people who are in it for the long haul. Builders, missionaries, people who care more about solving problems than impressing peers. If you're only chasing money, we know, and we're out. In the end, investors are looking for trust, for alignment, for signs that the founder sitting across from us is capable of navigating the storm, adapting under pressure, and turning vision into execution. So before you walk into your next pitch meeting, forget trying to be perfect. Just be real, be clear, be self-aware, know your numbers, own your past, and show us that you're building something worth believing in and that you're the one to lead it. Because if we believe in you, the product is just a bonus. 11. What real motivation looks like. Motivation is easy to fake on a good day when the sun is shining, the coffee's hot, your inbox is quiet, and your ideas are flowing. It's not hard to feel inspired. Everyone can be productive when things are going well. Everyone feels driven when momentum is on their side, but that's not real motivation, that's mood. Real motivation shows up on the bad days. It's what drives you when everything is going wrong. When you're tired, when you're doubting yourself, when the world feels indifferent or even hostile to your efforts, it's what gets you out of bed after a sleepless night, what keeps you moving after a brutal setback, what pushes you to show up again, even when no one's watching and nothing seems to be working. I once heard a quote that stuck with me forever. A true entrepreneur is someone who can go from failure to failure with no loss of enthusiasm. That's not just clever, that's survival. Because in the world of business, failure isn't an event, it's a rhythm. Deals fall through, products flop, partnerships dissolve, plans unravel. And still, you keep going. The problem is, most people confuse motivation with hype. They think watching a motivational video, reading a quote, or getting a burst of adrenaline will carry them through. But hype fades fast. What stays is discipline. What stays is commitment. Motivation, at its core, isn't about energy. It's about identity. It's about deciding, this is who I am, this is what I do, and nothing, no matter how uncomfortable or discouraging, will stop me from doing it. On the hardest days, when the money is tight, when your product isn't working, when your team is tired, and the feedback is brutal, that's when you find out what you're made of. Not by how loud you talk, but by how consistent you are. Not by how you feel, but by what you choose to do in spite of how you feel. Here's the mindset shift that changed everything for me. Stop asking, how do I feel today? Start asking, what needs to be done today? Because your feelings will lie to you. They'll say, take a break, when what you need is a breakthrough. They'll say, You're not ready when the only way to get ready is to act. You'll never build anything great if your effort depends on your emotion. Greatness comes from showing up, especially when it's hard. So here's a question. Can you do the work when no one claps? Can you keep building when no one believes in it yet? Can you keep believing when you've failed 3 times in a row? That's motivation, not excitement, not dopamine, not a perfectly curated morning routine, just one decision, repeated over and over. Keep going. 12. The mistake. Entrepreneurs make when they follow the crowd. If you want to know what not to do in business, just look at where the crowd is running and go the other way. Every few months, there's a new wave: dropshipping, crypto, NFTs, AI tools, Amazon FBA, whatever the latest shiny object is. And suddenly, thousands of aspiring entrepreneurs flock to it like mice chasing the same piece of cheese. They're not asking, is this right for me, or can I bring something unique to this space? They're asking, how fast can I cash in before the window closes? That's not strategy. That's desperation dressed up as ambition. The problem with following the crowd is that by the time most people notice an opportunity, it's already saturated. The early movers, the ones who took risks, who experimented, who failed when no one was watching, they've already learned the terrain. They've built the systems. They own the attention. You're arriving late to a party that's already winding down. Wayne Gretzky said it best: skate to where the puck is going, not where it has been. Most entrepreneurs skate exactly to where the puck was, because it feels safe. But in business, what feels safe is usually already dead. That doesn't mean you shouldn't enter popular markets. Some of the biggest businesses in the world operate in crowded spaces, but the key is differentiation, value, positioning, vision. Are you adding something that didn't exist? Are you solving the problem in a way others haven't? Are you thinking 3 moves ahead, or just copying what someone else already proved works? The moment you start chasing what's hot, you stop building what's yours. You're no longer innovating, you're mimicking. And no matter how hard you work, the best you can be is a slightly worse version of someone else. That's a race you'll never win. The best founders don't look for trends, they look for shifts. They study behavior. They look at where attention is going, not just where it is. They identify problems that are emerging, not just the ones everyone's already shouting about. And most importantly, they play the long game. They're not trying to get rich this year. They're trying to build something that lasts a decade. So before you jump on the next hot trend, ask yourself, am I choosing this because I see real opportunity, or because I'm afraid to miss out? Do I believe in the mission, or just the money? Would I still be doing this if it took 5 years to pay off? Because that's the test. If you wouldn't commit to it long term, don't start it short term. Great businesses aren't built by following the crowd. They're built by people who saw something others didn't and had the courage to act before it was cool. Let everyone else chase the cheese. Your job is to find the next maze. 13. The truth about mentors. Everyone wants a mentor, and on the surface, it makes sense. Why not learn from someone who's already been where you want to go? Why not shortcut the process, avoid the mistakes, and get direct access to proven wisdom? But here's the truth most people don't want to hear. A mentor won't save you. We romanticize mentorship, the wise guru who takes us under their wing, tells us what to do, opens doors, and accelerates our success. But that's not how it works. Not in real life, not in business. Most people don't need a mentor. They need clarity, execution, and time. You see, mentorship only works when you're already moving, when you've done the work, hit a wall, and need specific insight to break through it. The right mentor at the right time can save you months, maybe years. But if you're still at the stage of vague ideas and big dreams, no mentor can give you what you haven't earned through action. It's like trying to get directions before you even know where you're going. The other problem: most people look for general mentors when what they really need are situational ones. They want one person to guide them through every stage of the journey. But business doesn't work like that. The advice you need when you're starting from zero is different from what you need when you're scaling past your first million. The best mentors are rarely lifelong guides. They're specialists. They help you solve one problem at a time. That's why the best way to find a mentor isn't to ask, "Will you mentor me?" It's to ask something better. "I'm facing this specific challenge. Can you help me think through it?" That kind of request shows respect. It shows that you've done your homework, that you value their time, and that you're not looking for someone to do the work for you. And more often than not, people are willing to help when they know it's targeted, temporary, and actionable. Here's another truth. Mentors are everywhere. They're in podcasts, in books, in YouTube interviews, in blog posts. You don't need to sit across from someone to learn from them. The only question is whether you're willing to listen deeply and apply what you learn. In fact, the greatest mentor you'll ever have might not be a person. It might be your own experience. Nothing teaches faster than failure. Nothing sharpens judgment like trying, adjusting, and trying again. You won't find clarity in someone else's plan. You'll find it in doing. So stop waiting for the perfect mentor to show up and give you permission. They won't. Start building, start failing, start learning. And when the time is right, you'll realize that the mentors who helped you most weren't the ones who handed you answers. They were the ones who showed up just long enough to point you back to your own instincts. Because at the end of the day, the only person responsible for your growth is you. 14. The next great advantage: personalization. We've entered an era where attention is the most valuable currency in business, and generic just doesn't cut it anymore. Mass production, mass messaging, and mass appeal are losing power. People don't want to feel like a number. They want to feel seen. That's why personalization is no longer a bonus. It's becoming a competitive necessity. In a world flooded with options, the businesses that win are the ones that make customers feel like the product, the experience, or the service was designed just for them. This is the next great advantage. The secret edge that separates the companies that merely survive from those that dominate their space. We've seen this shift happening for years. Netflix recommending shows based on your habits, Spotify creating playlists based on your mood, Amazon suggesting products based on your browsing. These companies aren't just offering services, they're crafting personal experiences. And it works because relevance builds trust. Relevance creates connection. But personalization isn't just for tech giants. In fact, this is where small and mid-sized businesses can punch above their weight. A handwritten note, a customized onboarding flow, a product recommendation based on a customer's actual need, not a preloaded script. These things don't scale easily, and that's exactly why they matter. We're entering a paradox. The more the world automates, the more people crave the human touch. They want to know that your business remembers them, understands them, and evolves with them. If you can deliver that, you won't just gain customers. You'll create fans, evangelists, people who tell others, not because you asked them to, but because the experience was that good. AI is accelerating this trend. With the right data, you can tailor content, product experiences, marketing messages, even pricing, all based on individual behavior. But technology alone isn't enough. The real power of personalization comes from empathy. You have to care. You have to be curious. You have to ask, who is this for? What do they really need? How can I make their life easier, better, more meaningful? That mindset transforms everything, from how you design products to how you write copy, deliver service, and build brand loyalty. Here's the irony. Personalization is not about making everything different. It's about making people feel like it was made just for them, even if it's one of 1,000 versions. The goal isn't perfection, it's relevance. If you want to future-proof your business, start here. Build systems that listen, build offers that adapt, build messaging that speaks directly to someone's reality, not just their demographics. Because in the next phase of business, the most scalable advantage will be the most personal one, and the brands that make people feel understood will own the future. 15. The truth about sales that no one tells you. Sales. For many entrepreneurs, it's the most intimidating part of building a business. They say things like, "I'm not a salesperson," or "I'm not good at convincing people." But here's the truth no one tells you. Sales isn't about persuasion. It's about connection. We've been sold a lie about what selling is supposed to look like. We imagine slick talkers, confident closers, people who can pitch anything to anyone. And because we don't see ourselves that way, we assume we're not built for sales. But the best salespeople I've ever seen aren't smooth talkers. They're not always extroverted. Some of them are awkward, introverted, even nervous. What makes them great isn't their performance, it's their authenticity. People don't buy because you delivered the perfect pitch. They buy because they believe you. They buy because they trust you. And trust doesn't come from polish, it comes from honesty. I once had a young employee who was terrible at sales. He was nervous on every call, stumbled over his words, and had no idea how to close. One day, I told him to do something that went against everything he'd learned. I told him to admit it. On the next call, I said, "Tell the customer it's your first time, that you're nervous, and that you believe in the product even if you're not a pro yet." He did it, and to his surprise, the customer responded with kindness. The walls came down, the conversation became real, and the sale closed. Why? Because people want to buy from humans, not sales machines. They want to feel safe. They want to feel heard. They want to feel like you're not trying to win, you're trying to help. That's what real sales is, solving problems, not pushing products. If you believe in what you're offering, you don't need to pressure anyone. You need to ask questions, you need to listen, you need to understand what matters to them and show them how your solution makes their life better. That's it. And if you don't believe in what you're selling, then stop. Either fix the product or find something worth standing behind, because people can smell misalignment, they can feel when you're faking it, and no script in the world can save you from that. You don't have to be perfect to be great at sales. You just have to be real. Be the kind of person people want to buy from, clear, honest, direct, and invested in their outcome. Ask better questions than anyone else. Follow up with care, not pressure. And above all, make it about them, not you. That's the part no one tells you. Sales isn't a performance, it's a relationship. And if you master that, you'll never have to sell again. 16. The worst money mistake I ever made. Everyone makes money mistakes, but some of them stay with you, not because of how much you lost, but because of what they reveal about you. For me, the worst money mistake I ever made didn't just cost me financially. It exposed a mindset I didn't even know I had. I was in my early 20s. I didn't grow up rich, but I was starting to earn a little. One day, my godfather told me about a can't-miss investment, a stock, he said, that was about to explode. "It's going to triple," he told me. "Buy in now, and we'll ride the wave together." I didn't know much about stocks. I didn't know what the company did, who ran it, or even what problem it solved. But I wasn't thinking about any of that. I was thinking about easy money, fast results, a shortcut to wealth. So I took $2,500, money I didn't really have, and I threw it in. Half of it was on a credit card. The other half was everything I had in my account. I watched the stock price like a hawk, believing that every tick up meant I was getting richer. But that stock didn't go up. It tanked fast. Within weeks, it had dropped over 90%. The company folded, the money vanished, and because I had used margin, borrowed funds, I actually owed more than I invested. I had to borrow money from my parents just to pay it off. I was embarrassed, ashamed, angry, but more than anything, I was humbled. That loss taught me something I've never forgotten. There is no such thing as easy money. When you don't understand what you're investing in, you're not investing, you're gambling. And when you invest based on hype, hope, or hearsay, you're handing over your financial future to someone else's conviction. The worst part, I didn't even care about the company. I cared about the gain, and that's the root of the problem. When money becomes the only goal, you stop asking the right questions. You ignore risk. You forget strategy. You abandon due diligence in favor of excitement. That's how smart people make dumb decisions. Since that day, I've made a rule. If I don't understand it, I don't invest in it. Not because I'm risk-averse, but because I now understand what real risk is. It's not volatility, it's ignorance, it's chasing what you haven't studied. It's acting on emotion instead of information. I also learned something else. The fastest way to lose money is to chase someone else's conviction without developing your own. If someone can't clearly explain why they believe in an opportunity, and if I can't clearly repeat it back with confidence, I pass. We live in a world that glamorizes fast wins, meme stocks, overnight crypto millionaires, viral product launches. And while those stories are exciting, they're not the norm. They're the exception, and they're often followed by crashes no one talks about. So if you're just starting to build wealth, let me give you the advice I wish someone had given me. Slow money is real money. It's earned through learning, discipline, consistency, and patience. It's not flashy, but it's sustainable, and it compounds in ways that easy money never will. The worst money mistake I ever made cost me thousands, but it gave me something far more valuable, a standard. And that standard has protected every dollar I've earned since. 17. The dirty truth about scaling a business. Everyone wants to scale. It's the buzzword in every founder's mouth, the ultimate badge of honor. We're scaling, they say, as if it's a natural next step after launching, as if growth is always good, as if bigger automatically means better. But here's the dirty truth that no one puts on the glossy investor decks or startup podcasts. Scaling is messy, chaotic, unforgiving. And if you're not ready for it, it will break you. People think scaling is just doing more of what already works. More customers, more revenue, more people, more systems. But they don't realize that every layer of growth adds friction. Every new customer is a new variable. Every new hire adds complexity. Every extra dollar earned increases the stakes and the exposure. There's a myth that scale is clean, predictable, and systematic. But in reality, scale multiplies both your strengths and your weaknesses. If you have cracks in your foundation, scaling doesn't fix them. It shatters everything faster. Here's what no one tells you. Every level of growth introduces a new level of chaos. And if you don't have the emotional stamina, operational discipline, and leadership maturity to handle it, your growth will feel like slow-motion collapse. I've seen it firsthand. Companies doing $200,000 per year with 2 people are often more profitable, more peaceful, and more sustainable than companies doing $10 million with a bloated staff, internal drama, and razor-thin margins. Because scale doesn't just require systems, it requires capacity. Not just technical capacity, emotional capacity. Can you handle pressure? Can you delegate effectively? Can you lead at scale? Can you say no to growth that doesn't align with your mission, even when the money looks tempting? There's a moment in every founder's journey where they realize that growth isn't just a goal, it's a test. It tests your leadership, your culture, your patience, and most of all, your discipline. When the business is small, you can operate on instinct. But at scale, instinct needs structure. Passion needs process. Vision needs systems. You can't just wing it anymore, because now your mistakes echo through teams, timelines, and P&Ls. And here's another uncomfortable truth. Not every business should scale. Some businesses are amazing as small, focused, profitable operations. And that's okay. Growth for the sake of growth is cancer. If you don't know why you want to scale, you'll chase volume instead of value and end up exhausted, bitter, and burned out. So before you scale, ask yourself, is my foundation solid? Are my systems repeatable? Can my team handle the load? Am I ready to lead at the next level? Because scale doesn't make things easier. It makes everything louder. Your problems get bigger. Your decisions get heavier. Your mistakes get costlier. But if you're ready, truly ready, scale can be the most powerful force in your entrepreneurial journey. Not because it's glamorous, but because it stretches you into the leader you were meant to become. Just don't be fooled by the fantasy. Scaling isn't a straight line. It's a battlefield, and only the disciplined survive. 18. The most valuable skill of all, communication. If there's one skill that separates average entrepreneurs from extraordinary ones, one trait that amplifies leadership, multiplies influence, and unlocks opportunities at every level, it's not intelligence, creativity, or even resilience. It's communication. Your ability to communicate clearly, persuasively, and authentically will determine how far you go in business and in life. You can have the best product in the world, the most brilliant idea, the perfect strategy, but if you can't get other people to understand it, believe in it, and take action because of it, it doesn't matter. People don't follow ideas, they follow clarity. And clarity is your responsibility. I once sat across from a founder who had a great product. He was sharp, driven, had traction, and a clear market. But when he pitched it to me, I didn't understand what he actually did until 15 minutes in. The pitch was full of buzzwords, jargon, and feature lists, but none of it connected. I finally stopped him and said, "Listen, it's not my job to understand you. It's your job to make sure you're understood." And that's the truth most people miss. Communication isn't about what you say, it's about what they hear. If your message is complicated, confusing, or buried under technical fluff, people tune out. They don't ask you to explain, they just silently move on. Investors won't wait for a second pitch. Customers won't read your landing page twice. Your team won't act on unclear instructions. In a noisy world, you have seconds to make someone care. And if you can't communicate simply, you lose. Now here's the good news. Communication is a skill. It's not something you're born with. It's something you build. And like any skill, it improves with practice, feedback, and obsession. Study great communicators. Watch how they use pauses, how they tell stories, how they frame ideas in a way that makes people feel, not just think. Learn how to read a room, how to adjust your message based on who's listening, how to use fewer words, not more, to say something powerful, and above all, practice explaining your idea to a 12-year-old. If they don't get it, it's not ready. This isn't just about pitches or speeches. This is about daily leadership. Every time you talk to your team, your customers, your partners, you're either building alignment or creating confusion. You're either inspiring trust or raising doubts. So many entrepreneurs get stuck not because they don't have the right solution, but because they can't explain it in a way that lands. They stay stuck in their own head, using language that feels smart to them, but creates distance instead of connection. Great communicators don't try to impress. They try to connect. And connection is what builds companies, cultures, and brands. So ask yourself, can you explain your business in one sentence? Can you tell your story without sounding rehearsed? Can you give your team direction that doesn't need to be repeated? If the answer is no, don't build another feature. Build your communication muscles, because if you can't communicate what you're doing, no one will follow you. And in leadership, if no one's following, you're just taking a walk. 19. How billionaires make big decisions under pressure. Every entrepreneur will eventually face it, the moment when everything is on the line, a critical hire, a massive deal, a crisis you didn't see coming. The pressure is real, the stakes are high, and every decision feels like it could either elevate your business or kill it. The question is, how do you make clear decisions when your brain is on fire? Over the years, I've had the chance to sit at tables with billionaires, political leaders, and high-level decision-makers. And despite their differences, they all seem to follow the same fundamental rules when the pressure hits. The first is this: trust your first instinct, but never act on it instantly. Your gut is often right. It's the product of years of pattern recognition, subconscious processing, and quiet observation. But in high-stress situations, that instinct is also drenched in emotion, and emotion clouds judgment. That's why great leaders take a beat. They pause, not out of hesitation, but out of discipline. They let the adrenaline settle. They give the brain space to switch from reaction to reflection. This is especially critical when the decision is irreversible, when you can't afford to be wrong. In these moments, they follow the second rule: never make a decision that can kill the business. That sounds obvious, but it's easy to forget when you're caught up in hype, fear, or FOMO. Billionaires think in terms of asymmetry. What's the upside versus what's the possible downside? They don't avoid risk. They avoid terminal risk. So even if something looks exciting, even if the reward seems huge, if the potential downside can wipe out the company, the team, or the vision, they pass. This is what separates long-term builders from short-term gamblers. The third rule: sleep on it. You'd be amazed how different a decision looks the next morning. A mind under pressure is like water in a boiling pot, too agitated to reflect anything clearly. But when you rest, reflect, and return to the decision with a calm perspective, your clarity multiplies. The best founders know this. They gather the data, listen to advisors, ask tough questions, and then they step away. They disconnect. Not for days, just enough time to gain altitude. Then, when they revisit the choice, their answer is usually obvious. Big decisions require space. Here's what billionaire decision-making really comes down to: clarity over speed, discipline over emotion, protection of the downside, long-term over impulse. They don't always make the perfect choice, no one does, but they consistently avoid the worst ones, the ones that could end the game. So the next time you're under pressure and the world is telling you to move fast or trust your gut, do both but with wisdom. Listen to your instinct, check your risk, then give yourself just enough space to see it clearly. Because in the end, decisions don't need to be fast. They need to be right. 20. What makes a true leadership isn't about being the smartest person in the room. It's not about having all the answers, being the loudest voice, or holding the highest title. Real leadership is influence without ego, direction without control, and vision without noise. I've seen people with fancy titles who couldn't inspire their team to move an inch. And I've seen quiet, grounded individuals with no official authority lead entire rooms just by how they carried themselves. That's because leadership isn't a position, it's a presence. So what do real leaders actually do differently? First, they teach through story, not orders. The greatest leaders I've ever known didn't command. They invited. They didn't bark instructions. They painted pictures. They made people feel something. There's a reason the most influential teacher in history, Jesus, taught through parables. Because stories cut deeper than commands. They bypass resistance and speak to the soul. If you want to lead people, stop telling them what to do and start helping them see why it matters. Second, true leaders make people feel seen. They don't just lead projects, they lead people, humans with fears, ambitions, insecurities, and hidden talents. Great leaders listen more than they talk. They don't try to impress their team, they try to understand them. They know that people don't remember what you say. They remember how you make them feel. You don't need to be charismatic to lead. But you do need to be present. When a leader truly sees someone, their potential, their struggles, their growth, that person rises. Third, they take the pressure personally and the credit collectively. When things go wrong, a real leader steps forward and says, "This is on me." And when things go right, they step back and say, "This is because of you." That's not humility for show, it's a standard. Because leadership isn't about being admired, it's about being trusted. And nothing builds trust faster than taking responsibility without making it about your ego. Fourth, true leaders hold the line. In chaos, they remain calm. In uncertainty, they bring clarity. When the team is doubting the mission, they remind them why they started. That doesn't mean they never feel fear. It means they don't let fear make decisions for them, and they don't transfer their fear to others. Lastly, real leaders create more leaders. They don't hoard power. They multiply it. They elevate others. They spot potential early and invest in it relentlessly, because their legacy isn't in what they build, it's in who they empower. So ask yourself, do people follow you because they have to or because they want to? Do you inspire trust or compliance? Are you leading with conviction or just directing traffic? True leadership isn't loud. It doesn't crave the spotlight. It's the quiet force behind every great movement, team, or transformation. And if you're willing to lead with vision, empathy, humility, and truth, not only will people follow you, they'll become leaders themselves. And that's the highest form of leadership there is. You've just gone through 20 of the most important lessons I've learned, not from textbooks, but from real-world experience. From billionaires, battle-tested entrepreneurs, and the failures and victories that shape how great minds think. This isn't about copying what they do. It's about learning how they see. Because once you shift your mindset, everything else follows. Your decisions get sharper, your goals get bigger, and your life starts moving in a direction that's intentional, not accidental. If these chapters gave you clarity, challenged your thinking, or helped you see business and success through a sharper lens, do one thing right now: subscribe to the channel. This is just the beginning. We're going deeper. Because your mindset is your greatest asset. And together, we're going to build it like a billionaire. I'll see you in the next video.